Hello, hello, Ederson Oliveira here. This is the second interview with a group. Actually, that's the first interview with a group, but a second interview for the DNN Summit 2017. I have a group with me. I'm gonna try to coordinate, introducing and asking questions to each one of those people. Let's start with Ryan. Ryan, how are you, man? Good to see you here.
Hello, Ederson. Doing well. Hope you are too.
Perfect. Cassidi, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, Ederson.
And my buddy, my partner in crime, Scott. Scott, how are you, man?
I'm doing good.
Very good, very good. So, some of you are doing 50 minutes to an hour session. Some of you are coordinating some parts of the DNN Summit, and some of you are doing the full day training. So let's start with the ladies then. Let's start with Cassidi. Cassidi, talk a little bit about what you do, your session, the title of your session. Give us an intro about you.
So I'm Cassidi, and I have a company called 10 Pound Gorilla, and we do web development, internet marketing. I'm kind of the 10 Pound Gorilla of the group and try to think of things from a different perspective. So how do you take the small guy and make them appear to be an 800-pound gorilla? And that's always been my mission. So I love marketing. It's kind of what makes my brain tick. So my sessions called Lead Gen, the Next Generation. And we're going to address and kind of push the envelope of traditional internet marketing practices, which if you're doing or not doing, you'll still benefit from the session. But, a lot of people are doing, pay-per-click, Facebook, e-newsletters. And how do we actually take those elements to the next level, to the next generation, and start increasing our ROI? Because as the years have gone by, we're getting more competitive with a lot of other messages reaching people. So we need to be able to engage and earn the business from the people that we're reaching with that advertising.
Got it. Great. So the title sounds like it's an episode out of Star Trek, but I'll get back to that in a second. Let's jump to Scott. Scott, what's your session about? Actually, you are doing the full day training on module development. So talk a little bit about your background, why you are well positioned to talk about that, and what's the session about? Go for it.
Yeah, this will be my third time doing this kind of full day, I guess somewhat of an intro to DNN development track. I guess I'm a glutton for punishment. I don't know why I'm doing it, but I think I'm uniquely qualified to do it because I have been doing DNN development for 5 years now, a little over 5 years now. I am an MVP. I've done this training twice before with some modifications. I'll probably even hopefully throw in some stuff for DNN 9 at the last minute. But also, I've been recently working on some documentation for DNN Corp, which is going to go on their official documentation portal for MVC modules. So that'll be going in pretty soon, probably before the conference launches. So I guess I have a good background on DNN training.
Perfect. Yeah, and you should mention as well that you do training for DNN Hero.
Oh, that's true too.
Okay.
I forgot about that.
Ryan, your turn. Ryan is not. I'll let you talk, but what's your role in this? In the DNN Summit. What's your role there?
What's my role in crime here? Okay, a little bit about me. More Creative Company. In about 2010, we decided that instead of doing a little bit of development on all sides of the streets, we wanted to stop and only focus on DNN-based solutions. So from that point forward, we started getting involved with many more things that we could possibly get involved with in the community. I help run and organize the Southern Fried DNN user group. Within cons, I'll volunteer myself and any of the employees that I can wrangle with me to then help put on and participate in those events. So you might have run across me or my crew at previous DNN cons or speaking at everything from Southern Fried, Day of DNN Charlotte, all the way up through Day of DNN Baltimore, or DNN Con Baltimore, and upcoming at DNN Summit. So I will be co-speaking at one short session on a DNN Summit that's a security-based one. So from that, I'll be sharing for anyone who wants to listen some of the things that we learned after being massively hit by a mixture of denial of service type attacks and DNN vulnerability attacks. So with Mark Saunders and Mitch Sellers, I'll be co-speaking and talking about and sharing experiences there for that. But more to this group as well, I'm helping organize and put forth the full day training sessions. So, you know, helped bend Scott's elbow there to get him to participate again for a full day. And I'll actually pass the question back over your direction, Adderson, then, because we have you doing a session for that, and you're doing the DNN intro session. So why don't you pass the question back over your way and talk a little bit about what you're doing.
See, I was placed on the spot. How come? I mean, I was not ready for that. In any case, yes, I was asked to present again. I don't know how people can stand me talking for 8 hours, but there were survivals last time. Yeah, I'll be talking about DNN. I'll be talking about DNN 9 as well, because I have been doing a lot of DNN 9 reviews lately. It's a full day. I'm trying to make it as dynamic, as interactive as possible. So again, it does become boring, and I can engage people on the content, on the presentation. Yeah, what else would I? Yeah, it's, again, I've been doing DNN for 10 years now. I've been doing training for DNN administration specifically for 6 years now. So yeah, it's right up. Yeah, I love doing that, and looking forward to do that again, and if I can survive. But as I told you, Ryan, I need a chair. Okay.
Oh, I've got a floor mat already planned, and standing chairs if the convention room allows.
That's great. So, thank you for the question.
Can I interrupt? Because I wanted to correct, because Ryan said to Adderson that you're doing the intro to DNN training, but you're actually doing the administrative training.
You're right.
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
yeah. I was thinking that I may have missed the right terminology of my session, but thank you, Cassidy.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. That, by the way, that will not be edited out. That will stay. In any case, that goes back to Cassidy now. Cassidy, my question about your session. Actually, how did you learn how to do that? Because I can ask Scott and ask how he learned how to program, and I learned how to program, and Ryan learned how to program, but how do you go about learning how to market?
I think like any skill set, you have to have a combination of just talents within inside your head. And my father was always in marketing. He actually started the marketing department at Coors Brewing Company. So since everyone's coming to Colorado, I'm probably interested in Coors. That's a fun fact. But so when I was in my 20s, I just thought like things were obvious, right? It's like, oh, well, you just do this or do that. And I realized that there were some aha moments for folks. So that's when I started realizing that maybe that was a talent for myself. And then I also enjoy the technical side. I used to code when I started the company back in 2003. I designed, coded, and marketed everything. So I still like the nitty gritty and technical aspects of it. And just like coding, excuse me, just like coding, it's a lot of self-taught because it changes so frequently. So I know any coder, you're not waking up and saying, I know everything today. Everything changes constantly. So same with marketing. You have to read blog posts, do research, read tutorials, watch videos to actually learn the in and outs of the tools and the techniques in order to learn how to maximize those. And that's what I think I want to try to accomplish in this session, is to introduce some new tools that people may not know about. And then also how to maximize and leverage the tools that you're using. Even within pay-per-click, there's so many different layers of extensions and ways to optimize how you're setting some of those ads to go out based on location or demographic, and then connecting that when people land on your site, and how do you speak to those people, and how do you have an engaging message and serve up content dynamically to those people based on their interests. And there's tools out there to help us do all these things, so it's just kind of connecting the dots and introducing people to those tools.
Cassidi, you had an Ignite session at DNN Baltimore. Was that connected? I'm trying to remember the topics of different sessions. Is that kind of like a larger fleshed out version of that brief intro?
So when I spoke in Baltimore, I focused on remarketing, which is just one aspect of it. And so this session will actually be a little bit more of a broader context. And again, that next generation, I'm going to lump remarketing and Facebook and pay-per-click into the, hey, you should know this by now. If you don't, we're going to cover some of the basics, but then we're going to push the envelope and look at some other tools of, in the e-commerce space, product recommendations. So what I like to call optimized content. So we're actually serving up products that people have recently looked at, or maybe relative to what other customers have looked at, and how do you do that more specifically, and what tools do you use? And even within content, you can use tools that, based on a user's pattern of looking at certain blog posts or certain content on your site, it'll take those keywords that are in common and start serving up other content recommendations for the visitor on your website to keep them engaged, using white papers to capture email addresses, and again, identify interest of users that then you can now, e-market back to through your e-newsletters and things like that. So this will be a lot more kind of surface level, but in depth of the whole marketing suite on the internet.
Perfect. I'll back to you a bit later, Cassie, but let me jump to Scott. Scott, your session is, you call it, I saw the description saying DNN Programming 101, and covering the tried and true aspects of DNN development. So can you unpack a little bit more on that? I mean, what approach, what strategies are you going to be using, to teach module development during your session?
Yeah, it's impossible to fit, the broad topic of just DNN development into 8 hours into just one day. But what I try to do is an overview, and I think the schedule looks something like showing, first of all, just orienting developers to how to properly develop an extension and explaining what extensions are. I mean, that has to be done, because I don't know about Ryan and Cassie, when you take on existing DNN projects from other developers who clearly didn't understand DNN, and you've got these extensions that are, just, I don't know what, like other applications hosted under DNN and redirecting to that. And I mean, so people have wild views of extensions without actually knowing what an extension is and how to properly develop something that plugs in and upgrades and works over time. So giving that foundation is the big thing. But I'm going to cover, I guess you would call, new topics. They were new as of Baltimore, but they're not even new anymore. And that's only been, 9 or just like 7 months. But I did the new stuff, the MVC and SPA module development. I'm going to cover those. I'll maybe work in, I mean, I could barely fit that into the DNN Baltimore, the 8-hour training there, because not only did I have to cover, extension development and how it was done, and, in the past, DNN 7, but also cover the new concepts in DNN 8. And then in 9, I'm going to have to cover maybe some new things there as well. So it'll probably be mostly what I did in Baltimore, which is some new DNN 9 topics. But it's going to be pretty broad and not really deep in any one subject.
The great thing, Scott, is that you ever have fresh content to be talking on the next presentation and next presentation and next presentation. So there's always
That's usually how it works. Yeah, either one comes before the other. Yeah, I'll do a conference, then out of that comes videos, or I'll do videos, and then out of that comes conference topics. So that's nice.
Perfect. Back to you, Ryan. 2 things that I could talk to you about. There's the event, and then there's your session. Let me focus about the full day event. Last time on DNN.com, I have used Slack to share, integrate a little bit better the group. And I think that you had some plans to use that or other strategies. I mean, what is it that you guys are planning to do, I guess, to spark more interest, to spark more conversation? Is there anything cooking on that?
Yes, it's here almost the middle of November, and it's a good time for us to just put out some expectations and let people know what we are planning. Here towards the middle of December, we should be sending out an email to all of the registrants who have signed up for the full day training courses to start getting some questions out to them and giving them some expectations of technology and things that we're going to be using during the day training sessions. Slack is one of the items that you mentioned. We will be creating Slack channels for each of the different training sessions, so that within those sessions, anyone who wants to participate and use Slack will be able to ask questions back and forth to each other, share code back and forth to each other, and do that type of interaction that we all do with our coworkers and with other people with this tool or with similar tools day to day. But as a class or a group, you're going to be able to do that, and that's a great tool for the trainer, but then also for the group, so that you can keep track of your questions. You can pass those links and examples back and forth. So we'll be doing that beforehand and signing up and creating those accounts for everyone who has already registered. We're also going to be sending out an email of questions where we're going to be setting some expectations for not only the syllabus and the list of items that are going to be done in that training session, but asking the attendees, what do you think about these? Do you have some extra questions? Is there something very specific to you that you're wanting to get out of this session? And we'll be passing those to the trainers beforehand so that they can prepare. It doesn't necessarily mean that you ask this specific question and then there's going to be 20 minutes in the training session specifically devoted to you. But this type of preparation beforehand means that trainers can guide their examples to these specific questions. And if there's something topical or specific, they'll make sure to cover it and address it, if not with the whole group of trainees, but to that person directly as well.
Perfect. Okay, great. So I guess I'd take a bit of time there as well to talk a little bit about your session, the session that you're going to be sharing with Mitchell and
Mark Saunders.
Mark. Okay, so do you want to talk about that a little bit?
So there's a lot of pain and a lot of heartache that's happened for different folks. I would say that you can be completely prepared and these types of things never happen to you. You can be completely prepared and these types of things do happen to you. So out of some of the events that happened before DNN Con Baltimore and certainly over the things that have just happened this summer, where there have been denial of service attacks, DDoS, that have been large scale and fairly complex, that are pointed at very small servers and very small hosting locations. So it seems like some of the tools that were hitting the major websites that you might expect have been pointed at the everyday everyone else. So this session came out of a few different heartache points where there was one DNN website or another that was hacked, and as a group of us all got together talking about it, we said we need to have a security-related session at DNN Summit, and who wanted to speak and who wanted to talk. And I believe that we twisted the elbow of Mark Saunders to please step up and share some information. Mitch also said that he would participate, and they're both gracious enough to have me along. I'll be glad to help share some suggestions and some of the things that we've seen. Anybody who attends that session should come away with, if nothing else, a bullet point list of things to look for, steps to take when you see things happen, but then a bevy of tools and specific things that you can do to both further lock down, further check out, and then check healthy websites before they're compromised, and then also what to do when you think you've been compromised.
Perfect. Very good, very good. So let me open up a little bit and see if, again, as I said, I'll put you guys on the spot and see if anyone, and I'm not gonna make it mandatory, but anyone has any questions to each other. I mean, anything there going on. I'll give you
Oh.
a countdown. I cannot wait forever here.
Okay, all right.
So Ryan, I was going to ask what you kind of said, but with having 3 presenters for the one hacked session, what's the thought process behind that, and what's the benefit of having more people instructing?
Well, that's actually still up in the air. I haven't talked with Mark or Mitch about it. We were just conversing as a larger group and said that we'd be glad to help participate with each other. So that's still up in the air as far as who's going to be presenting and organizing it. I can say that from a shared experience perspective, these things and the materials and points that Mark can speak to get very specifically down to technical answers and step-by-step what to do type things. My experiences can be a bit of my coding horror story type descriptions to share some experiences about what a hosting company suggested or requested that I do that wasn't in the best interests of security. And I'll be able to share some experiences of having been not only hacked, but then also underneath of a hosting center that had a denial of service attack that lasted for 2 days. So I have some pretty good examples. And then if anyone questions what Mitch can bring to a session, you haven't sat in on a Mitch session. So for anybody who hasn't sat in on a Mitch session before, that is the definition of extremely helpful, well-documented, case study examples. Mitch gets involved and it's going to be an excellent session. So I think that the question could turn around and Ryan, what are you bringing to this since you've got these great people there? I'll bring some experience and some examples. As far as the format goes, we'll see what we cook and organize.
And some personality, Ryan.
That I bring. That I bring.
Once I've done a shared session with 2 others, and one of the benefits was during Q&A at the end, because then maybe one knew something more about that particular question and could chime in and talk more proficiently about that question. So it was very useful on that on the Q&A side of that session. Just my 2 cents here.
Yeah. To that example, when we were running down that a website had been compromised, the DNN site was compromised, I knew for a matter of fact that it was compromised. I had 0 questions. Everyone else in the conversation wasn't quite sure it was compromised, but I was positive because of my experience. That said, I couldn't find the code. I knew that it was compromised and I could point to it. But it was Mark going through using his tools that knew exactly what to find and where. So we'll be taking a multi-direction approach to several points of conversation, I expect.
Perfect. Let me switch to this quiet guy here. Scott, what are the requirements for someone attending your session? I mean, of course, they need to have their laptop, but they need to have Visual Studio as well. I mean, what is the deal there?
I'm still working that out with Ryan. We'll probably do what we did in Baltimore, I assume, Ryan, where we'll provide VMs, but I think, right?
That's right.
So in Baltimore, and this has worked, even previous to that, I think we first met in Charlotte in 2013 when I did that training. We had VMs as well, whether they're Azure or however, whatever they're given to us. But we're going to try to make it all the same, because the last thing I want to do is tell everyone you need Visual Studio and some other things on their laptop, and someone comes with different versions and whatever. I mean, it's hard enough already because we always have some sort of technical issues, so we'll see. But hopefully everyone comes with a laptop. I mean, that was even last time I had to loan one of my Surface to somebody because it's so please bring a laptop. Don't just bring your phone. That's not going to work. And hopefully we'll have everything else taken care of. Sorry, you're going to say something, Ryan?
I was going to say, to chime in on that, all of the training sessions are going to benefit if the attendee is bringing their laptop. Hopefully that's their working laptop that they use in day-to-day development or work purposes. It does not matter if it is a PC or a Macintosh. It would help if it's a PC. Just having helped run the training sessions at DNN Baltimore, I would say 50-50 was the luck percentage of who on a Macintosh got onto these VMs successfully versus who had problems. And the problems were not because it was a Mac or because of the VMs. It was a problem because maybe they were 1 or 2 versions behind on their system, or 1 or 2 versions behind on this one piece or another piece. So if you are bringing a Macintosh, just try and please make sure that you're all up to date on what you can be up to date on. Myself, I will have at least 2, if not 3, loaner laptops present, specifically to help make sure that we're prepared for the situation that Scott described, because in the training sessions, 3 or 4 of them running last time, we could have used about 6 spare laptops for people who got there and then had an issue of one kind or another. I'll be making sure that we have at least 2 or 3 for participants, but come prepared. If not, just be friendly and work and view off the person next to you.
Well, and then Ryan, I was going to ask, because probably not everyone works on a laptop or has a laptop to bring. So it would probably be best if they communicated that ahead of time so we could try to find a match for them.
Yep. In the questionnaire that we have prepared to send out for folks, that will be one of the questions, and obviously encouraging them to know what to bring. And per sessions, it'll be more important than others. For instance, if you're doing the intro, you might not need a laptop. You might be fine watching and participating that way. If you're doing the admin, you could probably get away with it and still get enough information out of the session, the course, to make it worthwhile. If you come into the developer one without a working laptop to work in, you're going to miss out on the hands-on element. You're still going to gain from the watching, but plenty of people learn by doing and then having those things to take away with them. So.
Yeah, and as far as technical experience, for the developer, it was probably different than most of the other tracks where we would assume some level of proficiency with, ASP.NET development, C# or VB, ASP.NET development, some kind of proficiency with JavaScript. I mean, we're not going to go into detail about Angular or React or the different frameworks, but some proficiency with that. There'll be examples of that, and basic SQL knowledge.
Perfect. Okay, I have one question for you, Cassidy. I'm very interested in your session. I love the marketing side of businesses, and yeah, my question is, it's quite a broad topic from my standpoint. So I'm assuming that you're gonna brush through a bunch of information and people leave that session with, hey, I need to check that tool, and that tip. And is that the idea here?
Yeah. And I know you asked me, like, how did you get into marketing? And I kind of mentioned that I realized I just sort of had a thought process that worked in that arena. So my goal is to help share some of that thought process. So for people where maybe that just doesn't, naturally pop into their head, to kind of have some aha moments and say, oh, that's such a great idea. Why didn't I think to use these tools together? Or to encourage my customers, once I've paid for them to come to my site, to provide an email address or engage in some type of content. So I think it's going to be some conceptual thought process stuff to take away. And then also, yes, here's a suite of tools that are out there that you may not know about that can really change your world. And we'll briefly go over the benefit of each of them. And then if it hits home, it'll be something for you to go research and look at and see if that's something you can leverage.
Got it. Okay, so I have a new mantra.
Well, one more for Cassidy then. Favorite new tool that you might be mentioning in this session that is maybe new on the market or new for usefulness that people haven't heard of, that they could think, oh, hey, I have heard of that. I need to learn more about it. I need to come to Cassidy's session.
So Nosto is one of them that I've been using quite a bit in the e-commerce space. And then there's a couple of different Brilliance, and I'm drawing a blank on the other one, but it's another content marketing one where it actually dynamically serves up content based on your customer's interaction with other content. But in Nosto itself is that product recommendation tool and abandoned cart automation, and it actually integrates with Facebook advertising to serve up products that your client or that your visitor actually looked at dynamically. And so leveraging, again, some of these tools all in combination. And then we'll go into how do we encourage email submission, because some of these tools use that email submission to be able to leverage the marketing tools back. So again, we need more visitors to give us their email, so then we can market back with these specific recommendations.
Perfect. Okay, so I think that we are coming to an end here, and I have one question for each one of you. I'm very much right now into something that is called the one thing. And I'm gonna ask each one of you to tell me the one thing you want people that attend to your session to leave that session knowing, or, what is the one thing? And I'm going to start with you, Scott. Scott, what is your one thing? I mean, I know that you have 8 hours, 7 hours of content that you want to, push forward, but what is really the one thing that you want people to leave that session knowing?
I guess the one thing is how to properly start a module project with all the packaging and framework necessary to be able to work it on an ongoing basis. I think that's the biggest thing, because what I see a lot of times is these quick and dirty things that are not maintainable, they're not done right. So if you only learn one thing from me, is how to start a module or an extension project, picking the right technology and starting the project off right with the right packaging and everything, so you can maintain it going forward.
Go for you, Ryan. Ryan, your session on the security session there, what is the one thing that you want people to leave that session with?
The one thing I would have people leave that session with is an understanding of a little bit of preparation and a little bit of research that you should do on your hosting locations to help make sure things are locked down well. We certainly come out of a period of time where knowing that DNN was your base platform meant you were secure and that you didn't have a giant target on your back and vulnerabilities like other types of management systems do. And that's still the case. There's still a very infrequent amount of security vulnerabilities that are due to ASP.NET specifically, or because of DNN specifically. But there's a larger world of more activity that is happening now, and it's not just the big boys that are getting hit, it's everyone. So there are things you can do to remediate and to prepare, and hopefully you never have to rely on them, but when you do, it's too late. So good to be thinking about that security, and that's the takeaway.
Perfect. Before I go to you, Cassidy, I'll go with my one thing, because I need to set the example as well. Actually, I should be the first one, but anyway, my one thing is really from my administration session is to let people know where they can find things on the DNN administration. Where are things? Even if they don't know in depth what are they all about, but where are things where they can go to do this action or that action or that action, to have an understanding of the DNN administration. That's it. Cassidy, your turn.
So I guess my thing is I want people to feel inspired and realize that they're, only 10% of their full potential in terms of their ROI, and looking at all of the tools that they may be leveraging and seeing how those can actually interrelate in a web to increase that ROI, and just walk away with some aha moments that with just a few tweaks and changes could significantly enhance their online marketing.
Perfect. Anybody else has anything else to add about their session, about maybe asking a question to each other? Anyone?
Cassidy, anything general about DNN Summit that you want to mention? It's here again, week before Thanksgiving, so we've already ended some of the early registration discounts and things, but There's a lot more activity picking up, a lot more conversation. We're excited about it. You want to share anything about the DNN Summit in general?
Just that we have great registration numbers right now. Everything's coming together pretty well. I'm excited to have everybody in Winter Park, so I really encourage people to add that DNN on the slopes. If you're not a skier or snowmobiler and you say, I don't like the snow, that's okay. Still come join us and you can at least socialize, because I think there's going to be a lot of that still happening, and it is gorgeous up here. So there's a little bit for everybody. But yeah.
Very good, very good. Glad I was able to make it with the four of us. That's it. End of our second interview. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. And I think that's, we have a good time here. Thank you very much. Talk to you guys. Bye.
Thank you all.
Bye. Thanks, Patterson.